Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tito Clock. So please welcome your host, James Deakin.
Well, hi there, folks. What's up? How you all doing out there in Tito Land across this green quarantined nation of ours? It's a Monday afternoon, 5 o'clock, which means it's officially Tito Clock. And I hope you got your kape, your pandesal, your slippers, maybe some Crocs, maybe some cargo pants, cargo shorts to be more precise, just so you can get into the vibe and stay with us all the way through to 6 p.m. It's good to have you with us. I'm always so excited to get on board on Tito Clock with the rest of the team, X and Y, who are also out there, just making sure everything's working in the background because, well, you know, it takes all sorts. We're trying to get this whole thing up and running, and you guys have been there very supportive. So thank you again for joining us today. Is one of those shows where Tito Clock gets all serious. Well, as serious as Tito Clock can get, but don't worry, don't panic, all right? We're still going to keep the whole Tito Clock culture and flavor around because while we'll be tackling a very important and quite possibly controversial or hot issue, we will do so in the Tito Clock manner, which is how things should be done. It's about sort of being mature about things, trying to set a certain precedent, depends on which side of the Atlantic you're on how to sort of tackle sensitive issues. And today's issue is the doble placa issue. As you know, a lot of people are feeling really, really tense about that. It's otherwise known as RA 11235, but it's got a lot of the motorcyclists up in arms, and we're going to find out why. But we're going to bring in one of the co-signatories or the signatories of that bill, former Senator J.B. Ejercito, to also shed some light because there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot that we need to unpack here in order to understand what's going on with this whole law and why he seems to be implicated again. He's not the author. In fact, I accidentally also was a victim of that. I presumed he was the author because he was just always at the forefront of it. And he's not. He's a signatory, but he is involved in it, and he's a writer himself, and he also happens to condemn the timing of the implementation. So we're going to hear his thoughts, and hopefully if the LTO get back to us in time, which we've sent out an invite, we might be able to get them on the phone as well just to hear the official stand from the LTO. So that's how we're going to tackle that. If we have time, because we don't know how long that will go, I'd love to hear your thoughts and contributions on rent, because this is another issue that's really paralyzing a lot of people. The DTI guidelines, not sure how clear it is, but even if it's clear, there are certain areas. Let's say if you take bars, for example, the bars will fall under if you put them under these non-essential businesses. You still have to divide non-essential businesses up because like restaurants will open before bars for sure. Certain places will open before gyms, you know, certain areas will open before sporting stadiums. You see what I'm getting at? So these people are feeling, dude, I'm like at the lowest point of the non-essential list. And I've got I might have 6 months to a year, we don't know, right, before I open, and I need some kind of assistance with rent. And that's where we're having some problems. So hopefully we can tackle that as well as the doble placa. If we can do both, well, we've accomplished quite a lot in an afternoon. If not, we'll take it one at a time. Let's see how it goes. We'll try to sort of bring it up to at least a point where we can finally all get a better understanding. The goal here is to walk away with a clearer mind, a better understanding on both sides. We're not forcing you to pick a side, of course, but if you can get a better understanding of either side, then you'll be best placed to put a more intelligent comment down later on. You know what I mean? So you can be, we don't need to sort of dive in there with all of our pitchforks and stuff like that. We can sort this out the Tito way. That's the goal. So while we're here, I think I've given you a snapshot. Did I say chat? A snapshot is what I meant to say. Preview of what's coming up in the show. And of course, everybody's favorite, the raffle. That'll be on later on as well. Interesting to see some of your comments there on when I asked about what are your favorite things so far on Tito Clock. 30% of the answers so far are raffles. All right. I mean, it's nice, but you know, of course, siempre. We want you to come for the vegetables too, not just all the dessert and not just the empty calories, if you get my drift. As much fun as it is, we're here to learn something. And ladies and gentlemen, speaking of learning something, we are bringing back onto the show. I think this is going to be our first time we've had the same guest twice, maybe. So this could be history for us. He's joining us from the glamorous lounge room, bedroom, sala, wherever he might be. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome up JV Ejercito. Welcome to the show. Hi, Sen. Kumusta?
Hi, hi James. Good to be back.
How are you
nice
doing?
To be back here. Okay,
You're
okay.
the first.
Hi.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
good.
nice to be back. Nice to be back here.
You
Thank
know,
you.
Sen, we were thinking as I was introducing you. I think you are literally the first person to make your first second appearance on the show. So it's a milestone.
I'm well. I'm too because of two controversial issues. One was
Well,
the universal healthcare law, which we had. Thank you. I'll take the opportunity to thank you. I was given the chance to explain to our OFWs the benefits. No, they were misinformed or they lacked information on how good this landmark law is and that how it will benefit them and their family. So thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
hopefully now, yes, and hopefully now that we will tackle the doble placa issue, hopefully we can also clear some issues no, regarding surrounding these very controversial issues regarding with the riders.
Sige. Let's unpack it slowly. Anyway, this is the whole format and point of Tito Clock is to give people a better or an easier platform to be able to explain their ideas. We don't want to just limit you to sound bites, snappy quotes, and then try to process it after. No, this is a time of learning. So we encourage everyone out there who's listening, regardless of which side you're on, just try to listen to both because you might learn something very important. Let's start first then, like we did with the Universal Healthcare Bill. What was the original spirit of the law? What was its intent? What problems was it trying to solve? And then we'll take it from there.
Well, actually, this one is the double crack law is more for the anti-crime prevention, as we all know, James, that in the recent, not only recent years, the motorcycle has been used in a lot of crimes, particularly the riding in tandem, no, and because it's so easy, the motorcycle is very agile, very mobile. It's so that's why probably one of the easiest to use, no? For getaway vehicles and other stuff. So Senator Richard Gordon has authored uh, the RA regarding the doble placa, which seeks to have better, bigger plate numbers. But now it's not only the rear, so front and back that would be seen from 15 meters. The reason is that is for it to be a deterrent, no, to for motorcycles to be used in crimes. So that was the spirit of the law, and this was passed and this was signed by the president last year, and it caused outrage. Actually, James, I think you know that it caused outrage among the riders, and that they showed their force last year when it was passed. And probably we can discuss earlier, later, on what caused the outrage of the riders.
Okay. Would you even go as far as saying that it could have even cost you maybe the election? Would you even go that far or no?
Well, probably, maybe,
Timing was
because
yeah, the timing was
sad to say that I was the one really I was the center of this controversy. I'm not the
you're the
author,
face. You were
but
the face.
probably the right. Yes, probably because
You're,
there was one leader, one self-proclaimed leader who really spread this black propaganda that me being a rider, I did not protect, I did not fight for the interest of the rider, which was really wrong. To tell you the truth, James, what really happened was during the deliberation of this particular measure was I was equally busy. I was defending two landmark laws under my committees. Then it was universal healthcare law, which we discussed extensively last week, and the other one was the creation of the Department of Human Settlements or Housing. So, James, the time I had my hands full, so I
Mhm.
was not able to really attend the hearings of the doble placa. But I do not deny that I signed the when it was finished. I signed. I was one of those who signed. I think more than 17 or 18 senators signed. Reason being, of course, I did not want at first, but when I was there, being a rider, James, I know for a fact that riders are more often than not are discriminated, no? Especially in checkpoints. Riders are always asked to go to the side, asked to get down, produce the OR, CR, license. So they spend so much time in the checkpoints. And I told myself probably this could be the key so that this problem of riders being harassed in checkpoints might might be solved. Hopefully with the plates in front or RFID, probably with the use of scanner, then they can be cleared right away. So that was what really crossed my mind. That's why I signed. So if the riders thought that it was wrong for me to sign with them in mind, then I already apologized. But I think that was my reason.
Okay. Well, I think it's we now that we got the intent, the spirit out of the way, and it does we understand. I think the logic behind that. Obviously, you're a rider yourself, so this is why parang nadamay ka because of all people you
Yes.
should be better. Come on, parang you should understand the community and all that. So
Yes.
now the question I think where people are feeling a little bit unfairly discriminated against is that does this really curb crime? Is there a direct correlation? I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. Is there a direct correlation with the doble placa or the raising the size of the plates to preventing crime? Because as somebody else pointed out here as well, do criminals really use their own motorcycles? You'd think they would steal a motorcycle first, commit the crime, dump the bike, just as they would dump the gun. How does doble placa solve that? And how does it not punish those who are not criminals?
Well, well, actually, they may have a point also, because I also believe that nobody would use his own vehicle, or in this case his motorcycle, for a crime. It's in the same way the nobody would use his licensed gun to commit crime. But at that time that the president was really his top agenda was of course drugs and peace and order. So Senator Gordon was able to persuade most of the senators to sign, because this is one of the measures that is intended to prevent the use of motorcycles, no, in crime. So that was the intent. No? But again, James, the government has to adjust and has to adapt to the situation. In the same way, last week that we discussed the universal healthcare law was being drafted until it was passed, situation was entirely different. But now, because of the pandemic, the whole world we were all caught by surprise. So it's about time probably that this particular law might be adjusted. And I think more than the outrage of the riders is not only the double placa, no, but actually, James, in my own little way, I was able to convince Senator Gordon and the DOTR and the LTO to use decals instead for the front for safety reasons. Because also I'm also a rider, because knowing that having any metal object in front might be dangerous, no, for any
Yeah.
rider. So now we agreed on using decal. That's why I also agreed. Going back, James, that I think the bigger problem is the hefty fines and
Yes.
imprisonment, no, yung I think Without plates, you'll be fined 50,000 pesos with also with imprisonment. I think, especially now, in this pandemic, a lot of people don't have work. It's kind of the situation is not good. That's really very, very hefty. And ano, konti na lang, James. That's already the price of their motorcycles.
Yeah.
So I think we really have to adapt. I mean, it's a good time now. I'm hoping, I would appeal to Senator Gordon that he would consider, no, especially with regards to the hefty fines, imprisonment. I think too harsh for our riders.
Okay.
So and also James, I think to add also during this time you can see that while we are still in the ECQ in quarantine, the riders, the motorcycles are the lifeblood of our economy at present. Without
Yes.
them, I think the restaurants, our
Okay.
office jobs, whatever economy will not move. So it's not a good time for us to give them a burden, because they're the ones that we are making our economy move at this time.
Okay. All right. I understand that. That's actually. I just want to make something clear to everyone watching. So, firstly, you're not the author of the bill. You are a
Yes.
signatory. You're very publicly opposed to the timing of the IRR. The implementation is completely off. You stand by that, and
Yes.
you are doing your best now to make changes. So we've established that there's still an opportunity to make changes, just like with the universal healthcare bill, where there was a
Yes.
suspension. San, if we could just put you on hold for just a little while, but please don't go anywhere because we'd like to hear from the motorcycle activist group. We'll give them a chance to propose what they think is a good idea, and then we'll bring you back to see if there's some way we can have a solution to this. So just be on standby. We'll just put you backstage for a little while,
All right.
and it's quite funny because we have JV and the motorcycle activist is JB and I'm JD. So if you want, we can put JP Tuason and we can do a. We'll call you back in a second. So JB,
All right.
come back. Eric, see if you could bring him on stage from the motorcycle riding activist group. He's the official spokesperson. We can bring us Stan backstage for a while just so we can give JB the stage for a while. JB, I'm sure you heard a lot of what Sen said. You're obviously a motorcycle advocate and for the motorcycle rights. You'll be speaking on their behalf. We get that. Give us your position and the rights of the motorcycle rights activist group.
Okay, ever since the law came out and we were took by surprise in 2017, actually, it just came out of third reading from the Senate. And then when that happened, we immediately worked on our letter of indignation and our position paper before it was sent down to the lower house. So we did that. We put in our paper. So when it was called for a hearing in the lower house, we were already there representing the riding community and making sure that our voices were heard. So it took about a year uh, of hearings, and we actually became part of the technical working committee. We have Congressman Sarmiento to thank for that. He was the previous committee chairman for the Committee on Transportation. So being part of the technical committee, we work with the manufacturers, we work with legal people, we work with a lot of groups who put up a position that was so strong. We actually ended up with a lower house version, very uh, on the side on the riders. So there was no front decals, no front plates. The rear plates was there, but it was within the parameters of the worldwide accepted size for plates. And then there were no jail time. The penalties were the same as the cars and other vehicles. So it just gave emphasis that our enforcement needed help in identifying the motorcycles more. So when they discovered through our studies that there's a uniformity problem, for the front plates because there's no real position because there's multiple designs for motorcycles, different classes, different types, different makes. So there's really no uniform placement for the front, and that causes subjective issues. So after that, we had it published, the lower house version. We were very happy with it. And then when they brought it back to the Senate for the bicameral, then everything changed. They took out the entire version of the lower house, and Senator Gordon called it masyadong mabait. So it was too kind for him. So he brought back the stiff penalties, he brought back the front plate, he brought back everything, not considering the entire year that the lower house worked on it with the experts, the real experts, the motorcycle dealers, the motorcycle manufacturers, engineers, lawyers, and all of that. So when it came back to the Senate, he removed everything, put back his own version, and then that's what the president signed. So right now, we've been actually waiting for the IRR to come out. We've been working with LTO as consultants and as resource speakers in trying to find a safe front plate or decal because LTO has no power over the law. They have to follow what the law says. They are not in the position to change anything about the law. They can only comply to it. So we understand their position on that. But they did try to find a place for it. Up until such time that we were spending a lot of effort on getting the front decal smaller so that it would fit every motorcycle make and model. But it was so hard at that time that there are still motorcycles who are forced to use a bracket, and that bracket you have to produce yourself. I mean, a motorcycle rider has to produce it for himself if there's no decal placement, and that raises a lot of questions. And the uniformity issue is still there. So now, after the consultations, we were left with a burden whether what to do with the penalties and the jail time. These things are not present in any other law except for this one that's aimed for motorcycles. So now that we have seen the IRR come out with such bad timing, with such bad, the conditions are really bad. And it comes out right now causing panic throughout the nation. There's provisions in it that are causing panic at this moment because you have to change ownership. Otherwise, you'll fall under a 20,000 or jail time penalty if you don't change ownership within a certain period of time. That's about 3 days, according to the law. So it's causing panic. But in any case, what we're doing now is preparing for a case to be filed in court regarding the unconstitutional parts of this law. Because if we don't do that, we risk the riders. With LTO, I guess they're working with us. They're doing their best to work with us. But our problem is on the road side, we have no control over the enterprising officers that may take advantage of the large fines and use that as leverage to treat this as an enterprise against the riders.
Very well expressed points, JB. I think any reasonable person will understand that. And good news here is, former Senator JB is also very reasonable, as he also shares the same. He shares the same concern as you about the timing. You're both on the same batting on the same side there. He thinks it's appalling. If assuming that he can get the ear like he has now of Senator Gordon, I know that, okay, let's put everything aside and say, okay, it's too late because whatever, it should have been done before. Let's put all that aside and say, how do we move forward now? What are some of the things that you think you can propose that would address your main concerns? Some kind of a compromise here. Let's see if it's something Sen can bring up to Gordon.
Well, first and foremost, the treatment of the law based on the title Motorcycle Crime Prevention Act, it puts us in such a bad light already because we're being unduly profiled. That's number one. And then number two, the only compromise that we can accept at this point is if it doesn't apply to all, it shouldn't apply at all. And that's true in any case when you create a law. And we're singled out as motorcycle users. And what we're looking for is a fair distinction between car users, SUV users, and if they have a lower penalty, we should have the same. We have the treatment on criminals who do criminal acts when caught, and we're already accepting the larger plates in the rear. We're proposing assistance to the PNP to become their eyes and ears so that their intelligence measures would grow. And we're actually even offering to train the police in the use of motorcycles in special occasions wherein they do the patrols, come across a criminal, they do a chase, how to do that safely so we can protect our policemen. We've made so many offers on that level, but it fell onto deaf ears with Senator Gordon. Everyone in the lower house accepted that. So our only compromise here is, or would be, if it's not going to apply to everyone, it shouldn't apply at all.
Okay. These are once again very valid points, and I thank you for sharing the spirit of Tito Clock by being very sober, very calm, and the beard is very Tito, so we love that. Bagay na bagay. We're all Titos here. We can all talk this through sensibly. What would you do if you were in the Senate's position? Or I get it. I get what you're saying because I'm a rider too, and I certainly hate being profiled when I enter a village. Especially, I've been very vocal about this. I haven't personally experienced this, but many have said they go to a village that's forced to take their helmets off, like the one in Pasig in Greenwoods, and then they take it off, which means they're actually being coerced into a crime, because it does make a crime if you don't wear your helmet. It's against the Republic Act. And then later on, it's just to say, akase riding in tandem. So yes, it's a broad stroke brush used to try to take away your civil liberties. So I understand the extreme side, which we've all been accepted to. What's the compromise side? How would you tackle the riding in tandem problem without necessarily profiling, prejudicing, and discriminating against people like you and I and Senator JB?
Actually, right now, we have a very good example of how crimes can be addressed. The number of checkpoints that we have here, not considering the pandemic, has greatly decreased the number of not just heinous crimes, but also the petty ones. There's a huge drop because of the presence of our enforcement. And that is the strongest solution of that, of everything here. Police presence will deter, because even a plate as big as a whole sheet of paper, and if you put it in the front, on the side, and on the back, even on your helmet, if nobody's watching them, remember, criminals will not use their own plates. So if nobody's watching them, they will still do the crime and they will still get away. But if there are policemen on the road, they would definitely be deterred. Now there's this program which we call Bantay Lahat, Lahat Bantay, or BLLB. This was a project by Colonel Vincent Calanoga, which we are working with right now. We're promoting this. We turn the motorcycle riders, especially the clubs, to become the eyes and ears on the road or everywhere a motorcycle would be. We create a dragnet, we create a hotline, we create a center to validate reports coming in from the riders. Remember, on Facebook, we can report accidents faster than any television network. And that is because we're everywhere. So if we can create a BLLB that works nationwide, acting as the eyes and ears, we can actually send in information to the police And they can train us also in how to identify these guys. And then a validation process can actually corner a criminal. So what we're proposing here is why not work together against uh, full regulation, a full wall between government enforcement and the people. Because if we work together, we can produce better results, and there won't be any emotional anger between the two parties because we're working together. So that is how I would approach this, and I appreciate Senator JV for what he has done in this fight. He has said his piece. He said sorry, and we understand the situation in the Senate. But no other senator has placed himself in such a position that compromises himself and his integrity on the line just to fight for the riders in spite of what happened with the law when he signed it. So we're very appreciative of that.
I agree with you there because, as I said too, I don't think you were backstage yet when I said I asked Sen if it actually think he cost him his election, and I think, yeah, we can. It pretty much did because it was thrown in at right at the opportune time, and with that, let's invite Sen back onto the screen. X, if you could bring him up, just see. I'm sure you could hear behind us, backstage. Sen, could you hear everything that Jobert was saying? Maybe we'll try to bring Sen alone into the thing just for now. Or there, the three of us. Were you able to hear everything that JB said?
Oh yes, I heard Job explain everything clearly.
Were
The stand and the
grab there?
concern of the riders. Yes.
Okay. Is there
Okay,
anything that you
yes.
add on there, Stan? And perhaps maybe is there anything you think that could be applied or done now?
Well, the only dilemma, James, though, because when I was still in the Senate, with the passage of this law, I think Jobert knows this, JB knows this, that during the convention, during the bike convention, sorry, my kids are,
Yeah, it's work from home, Stan. Okay lang. No apologies necessary.
sorry,
YOLO.
sorry, sorry. During the bike convention, Jobert knows, and we were able to have an audience with the president, and we told him about with Butch Chase. I'm sure you know the legendary Butch Chase, who's very close to the president and who he trusts, and we were able to convince the president and tell him about the sentiments of most of the riders. And it was there, right there and then, during the motorcycle convention, that he said that he will suspend the implementation of the doble placa law, no? That was last year. And he wanted to talk to Senator Gordon because he agrees that the fines are kind of hefty. It's quite very very prohibitive, especially for the ordinary riders. So and that, unfortunately, James, because I'm not in the Senate anymore, of course it's different when you're still a senator. I was able to being the one. Luckily, I was also the one who defends the budget of the DOTR, of which LTO is part of. We work really close with the LTO. That's why I think JB or Jobert can attest to this that LTO has been very cooperative, and I through through my with the with my request, because I'm the one defending their budget, that to take into consideration the 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 requests and the concerns of the riders, which LTO Director Galvante, no, has lent an open ear. But now I think, James, luckily also I'm in another radio station. I have a regular program every Saturday. Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin and Yusek Dodo Dulay of the DFA, who are part of the IATF, are also co-hosts, and we discussed this over the program, and I requested that I hope that they can bring it up in the IATF, but it's not a good time right now to really fully implement the law because, as we mentioned earlier, James, and I'm sure you agree, you see all the motorcycles all over town. They are the ones keeping the economy going right now. Without them, I think the restaurants would most of the restaurants would have gone bankrupt. But through them, through deliveries, through office documents and whatever, courier services, just not a good time right now. So I'm hoping to Sector the Boy, which they committed that they will bring this up with the IATF. Hopefully, we can defer um, the implementation of the Doble Paca law, and hopefully the president will already, hopefully they can also remind the president of his commitment to talk to Senator Gordon. And I mean, James, I like I said, the universal healthcare law. Now that there's a pandemic, the government has to adapt. The government has to adjust to the situation because, all of us are affected. The whole world we are all affected, no? So hopefully this pandemic would be an opportune time for to make amendments and necessary correction if there are flaws.
Yeah, send run us through the legality. So when you're talking about legislation that's already been passed as a bill and it's already law, can you change the fines after that, or is there a pre-prescribed period where you can't touch it? I don't understand how these things work. What can be
The,
changed?
the,
What?
pre- the prescribed period, James, is 1 year. After 1 year, you can already introduce amendments.
Okay,
So, no law is perfect. It was all written by men, so there would be flaws, and as we go along, they will find imperfections. So now that it has been more than a year, they can already the current senators or congressmen can already introduce amendments to the law. Especially ako, I would really support being a rider. I see how difficult it is for riders right now, the situation. I will really support, especially when it comes to the hefty fines.
okay. So hefty fines in terms of the front plate, because am I correct in reading that the outrage, there's not necessarily outrage in the back plate? Am I reading that correctly? Nobody's really that
Yes,
about it. It's
I
the front
think
plate of the fines, right? That are the
it's the
big.
front plates. Yes,
Okay, front
I
plates.
think most riders do not like the front plates.
Mm,
I think they are acceptable to what the president proposed, bigger rear plates, European standards. So ako naman, worst comes to worst, that I proposed that, instead of for safety reason, kung talagang kailangan doon sa front, the use of decals might not be might is safer, no?
yeah.
So, but we'll see how it goes, no? Siguro because in other countries, James, I think it's Thailand or wherever, I saw motorcycles with decals in front, no, instead of plates, no. It was small, so it can write in the fork. It can be you can stick it in the fork or the fender. It's easy. So
Okay.
we'll see how LTO would go about this.
All right. Let's bring all the J's on the screen. Let's get JB, JV, and JD on screen right now. X and let's allow final words, final thoughts. JB, what would you like to end this with?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity, and we've been really it's been sleepless nights since the release of the IRR, and I've been speaking with the senator here, and we've been talking a lot about the situation. And we have reached a point that we have understood, you know, his position as a politician and as a lawmaker, our position as the end user, and we're very thankful for people like him. And we wish that there are more people who are as understanding as he is right now, especially in this time of the pandemic, because the timing is not just, well, for lack of a better term, it adds insult to injury on our part when they came out with the law. So it's a good thing that the LTO is listening and they're talking to us. I've been having regular meetings with them, even on a Sunday. We've been meeting regarding this. So I'd like to thank you, James, for this opportunity. The senator for giving us a fighting chance. And right now, because there's two opinions on the amendments part. Someone is saying that the amendments can happen 1 year after it becomes effective, meaning after the IR has been released. So the countdown starts when the release happened on the 21st. So someone is also saying, no, it started when the RA
Yeah.
got signed. So we're not sure how it's going to work or how it's going to play. Now the tricycles are getting involved. They gave me a call earlier because they are involved in the IRR. And you know how the tricycle drivers are, because they were not included in any consultation whatsoever. So they called me up and they were going crazy over the phone. That's another issue there. So in any case, whether it becomes an amendment or whether our case pushes through, and whatever it may be, what we're looking for here is to protect the riders' rights and to give other strategies or other solutions that will better work for the purpose of this law, which is crime prevention. And we know and we see and we feel that there are better solutions with us working together with the government. That's what we want to see, and that's how we want to do it on our end.
Okay, those are great parting words. Sen, how would you like to leave the wonderful audience we've got here with what message?
Well, again, thank you, James, for this opportunity. Thank you, JD, and also thank you, Jobert, no, for always fighting for the riders' rights. And if there are, I've been riding for quite a while, and I've never seen people who are so dedicated like Jobert, Rodgus, and others, no, that I have met in the riding community. I just want to let you know, and probably assure the riders, no, that whatever happened, probably as you said, James, it might have even cost me because I only lost by a few thousand votes,
Mm.
no. So if it became a factor, I will. There's no election anymore, but I will still continue to be with the riders. I'm a rider. I will always side with them. So hopefully we can achieve something. Hopefully, as if we work together. So be rest assured that I will always be with you.
Well, I think we've already achieved something here. We've achieved a discussion about a very controversial topic without calling each other names. That's already a milestone. Look at these numbers over here that you see on the screen. Is this maybe what are we looking at here? Is this one of your pictures?
Yes, this is the first wave of unity rides that we did to call out to the senator to hear the riders, because we've been successful with the lower house, but we're not very successful with Senator Gordon. So this is one part, calling out to him and calling to the president to give us a fighting chance.
Well, hopefully now.
Actually,
Yes, go ahead,
actually,
Sam.
James, if I may add, I those are the pictures, no, that I
Mhm.
showed the president. No, I had it on my phone, and he was surprised when he first saw. Sabi ko, sir, the riders are really furious. They are outraged, and more than 100,000, I think, showed up for this rally, and probably that's one of the reasons why he said that he wants the doble placa law amended and that at the time suspended. So unfortunately, it didn't happen. Wala. Sad to say, I was not there anymore in the Senate to really follow it up. I'm hoping that with this pandemic, this will be an opportune time for the amendments to happen.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, we thank you very much for your time and more importantly, for your good manners and right conduct. Thank you for joining me to talk. And you know what? I think we can set a template of how we can solve problems in a very mature way. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, James.
Thank
There.
you.
See, that's how you do it Tito style, right? You just basically crack the whip out. No, you don't crack the whip out. You have a logical discussion because, as you can see, they were on opposing sides, and but they can't agree on certain things. And the key here is always compromise. And I remember posting something about this yesterday on not necessarily about this doble placa, but it still applies because it's a mindset, it's an attitude. It's a way you approach things. If you're always approaching from a very hostile position or from a very personality-driven position, you're not going to get anything done because you will just be very clouded. For example, in this situation, we've got Sen, who introduced a bill that's, it is going to create some profiling and prejudice and discrimination against riders, just like Jobert said. I mean, these are all fantastic points. But when you put it together like this, we may very well come out of this with a workable solution for everybody, because even the riders also agree that there are problems with visibility for the motorcycles and for identification process. I get that too. That's a very serious issue. As a law-abiding rider, I want to know that I'm not bunched in, so I want to also police our own. I think Jobert brought that up too, which is very good, on how they're training these groups to become like a neighborhood watch on two wheels. You've seen these programs work overseas. It's not that far-fetched to see it work over here. I also understand the very good point, and it looks like we're all together in agreement with this, even Sen, about the fines. The fines are unreasonable because it does give leverage to unscrupulous and enterprising officers on the side of the road. Let's face it, that is a reality. So we have to make sure that through logical, rational discussion, we can get to these solutions. You don't get it by profiling. And it's a good thing when we use the word profiling, motorcyclists, we also profile politically. Everyone gets profiled. If they don't like what they hear, dilawan ka, Duterte ka, whatever. No, it's you can agree one day and disagree the next day, because you're really talking about issues, not personalities. This is why we can move on. I was very impressed to see how those guys on opposite sides of the fence remained extremely respectful, but they didn't mince words. I mean, they did say it for what it is. They called a spade a spade. These are some of the things I think we can definitely take forward into the whole new normal, because I think now people are seeing the value of taking discussions without the outrage. I think people also see how news agencies and a lot of people tend to monetize this outrage. They encourage it, they develop it, they create it, because it is the driver of their business. Remember, if they can get you to react in emotion, it's a bottomless pit. I mean, they can control you any way they want. Okay, sometimes the issues are very, very important and affect you day to day like this. But if they get you from the emotion, always be careful about how you're being played. That's another lesson I'd love to leave everybody with. Always just spend a second to think how you might be being played by these, whether it's big media, whether it's political organizations, whether it's even advocacy groups. Not all advocacy groups are built the same. Not everyone speaks as well as Jobert, and no, some of them come into their own agenda, which is even worse than the government's agenda. And they have no intention of protecting the group they claim to represent. I'm not necessarily speaking about this doble placa. I'm just saying this is very prevalent. So you have to also be careful of the fake people who come out and pretend that they are either defending the rights of this sector of transport or this sector of the farmers or this sector of whatever. And yung pala, they've got their own agenda, which is far worse than anything else that was pitched by the government. So having these rational conversations, removing the identity politics aside, and trying to tackle issues will lead you to a better place. You like that? There you go. I think I've talked enough. You know what I mean? I think we've solved more than the world's problems today. I think the only thing left is, come on, bring it up. It's time to cheer up the nation. Enough of this doble placa issue and debacle. Let's liven it up with a good old-fashioned raffle. This is one thing where you have absolutely no opposition. That's right. It's the only thing left on the internet that does not have hate. And it's 3,502 pesos going out to one super-duper lucky person. Let's check them out. I'm going to about to hit the button. Are you ready, X? Come. Boom. Oh, let me try it again. I missed it. Oh, there you go. This is technically officially 30% of the official hashtags were for the raffle. It still leaves 70%. That's not so bad. It's not as bad as I thought. But I also personally love them. I gotta admit, it's a lot of fun. And the winner is Ricky and Queen Penelosa. Congratulations! You are our big winner there, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining in, everybody. We're almost done. Tomorrow, obviously, we don't have enough time on today's show to be talking about what we kind of wanted to also talk about, but we also had a feeling we wouldn't get through it. That's why we didn't prepare any guests for it, because the chances of tackling two very, very, very big issues like we are doing doble placa and the rent, you're not going to get it done. But I'd love to hear more from your stories. If you have any, I'll post it again separately, maybe tomorrow or tonight, and then repost it again tomorrow so that we can consolidate, just like we did for doble placa, your concerns so that we can bring them up. Hopefully, maybe we might even have a guest that might be able to tackle it, because if you're hurting from what you feel is either no clarity or unfair treatment from your landlord, we'd like to be talking about this tomorrow. Personally, I think it's just an awful thing to take advantage of if you are a landlord and you can, for any reason, survive. I'm not painting also the same side, because, I mean, everyone with the same brush, because there are landlords out there who also live hand to mouth. We can't also just assume that every landlord is rolling in it. They have property taxes, they have other income, they have other expenses to maintain properties, etc. So it's not always a black and white thing. Nothing's black and white. Just remember that. Nothing's black and white. This is why discussions are important, to find the shades of gray, because it's in the shades of gray where you'll find all of the logic, solution, and sensibility, right? Not the black and whites. Nothing works that way in life. It's all about nuance. So it's not as easy to just say a landlord should just give up rent and make sure their tenants don't pay while there's no work. That's black or white, right? The shade of gray there is sometimes if you are a landlord, you could probably, if you can afford to extend, even if there's not a provision in the law, extend it, because these relationships later on could be worth more than the 3 months rent. Think about it. Think about it like that. Now is the time to think long term in terms of relationship building, in terms of values that you want to instill, because now is the time when it really counts. Every time after COVID and pre-COVID-19, when things are normal, it doesn't count for as much. When you say, pare, okay lang, I'll be there for you. Now is the time when you can really make a difference in a person's life. So if you can, and specifically because of the topic, if you're a landlord that has the capacity to make a difference in your tenant's life, if it's a good tenants are hard to find. Just like good landlords are too, but good tenants are really hard to find. And sometimes even just the cost of transferring to a tenant could cost you 3 months rent. So try to weigh that in when you're making decisions as well. Don't be so black and white about things, because some people, we just don't live in that world. And I know the law is pretty black and white. And that's why we have to use a little bit of this, our humanity, our understanding, our compassion, to be able to find the shades of gray, all 50 of them. See what I did there? Just kidding. What a way to sort of ruin a beautiful moment. No, it's all good. We'll be doing that tomorrow. Plus, of course, we'll be bringing you the raffle. We've also got, I think, another, we also wanted to talk about, I don't know, we'll talk about that later. We'll spend it mostly, if we can, on the topic of landlords, and we need you for that. We need you to be giving us your stories. Once again, keep it in a very Tito format, in a very Tito frame of mind. Don't get too hateful about it. Don't get too nasty. Just present the facts, and we'll work it out from there. We'll get through it. So till next time, you know what time it is tomorrow. It's 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's officially known now as Tito Clock. I'm James. On behalf of the whole team, X and Y, and Randy who's watching out there, thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow. Wash your hands. Welcome.
Fancy meeting you in my internet. Couldn't help but notice your smile, while everybody else around us is surfing about. Can we just stop and chat a while? Get away from these gray and boring, lonesome days of our quarantine. Early yet to say what lies ahead. It's just the first day of the rest of our lives. love could be waiting at the end of this quarantine. Let's stop and talk a while. Let's stop and talk a while.